I quit. Now what? My annual activities after leaving academia from 2023 to 2024. In this video, I'm going to respond to two questions. One, what did I do the first year after quitting academia? And two, what would I do differently? So hello everyone, my name is Dr. Catherine Sophia Belle. I am a Black woman who did all the things that Black women are told we're supposed to do. I got all the degrees, all the certifications, got married, had 4 kids. I had it all, I did it all, and I felt trapped by it all. So I liberated myself. And now I'm focusing on doing what I want to do on my own terms, especially focusing on reading, writing, coaching, speaking, as well as connecting to my sensuality and sexuality with lovers and in Black kink spaces. So on this channel, what I do is share some of my own experience and my transformational core pillars in an effort to encourage and motivate you on your own transformation journey while building beloved community. So let's get into it. I've been doing several videos about leaving academia, from my experience and perspective as a Black woman who was in the academy at a Research One institution. I had tenure. I was associate professor, advanced associate professor, and I decided to quit and walk away from the academy right before successfully going up for promotion to full professor. And if I had gone up for promotion, I would have gotten it because I published that's my first book, Hannah Arendt and the Negro Question. And my book that would have gotten me promotion to full professor is Beauvoir and Belle, a Black feminist critique of the second sex. So I knew I would have had a successful case for going up for full professor, but I no longer felt aligned in the academy. I knew it was time for me to walk away. So I decided to quit before going up for that promotion, right? And so what I'm reflecting on in this video is what I did in that year since I resigned/retired from my associate tenured philosophy professor position. So my official last day was June 30th, 2023. It's been a little bit over a year since then. And so I'm just going to walk through some of the things that I did over that last year. And one of the realizations that I had when I was thinking about this is that I often describe that 6-month period right after I resigned/retired, so July to December of 2023. I often refer to that as my lady of leisure period, where I was like, I'm going to take a true sabbatical. I'm going to rest. I'm going to stop doing all the things. So I had that sabbatical time from July to December 2023. And then from January until the end of April in 2024, I had a research fellowship in Germany. And as part of that research fellowship in Germany, they recently asked for our activity report in terms of what we did over the course of that year, not just during the fellowship period. And it's in responding to that request for the activity report that the realization set in that I did so many things, right? And so when I initially sent in that activity report, I was really excited about it. I was super proud of myself. I posted it on social media. And then as I sat with it for a while, I realized like, oh, this year, or at least 6 months of that year, was really supposed to be a time of sabbatical, a time of rest, a time of being a lady of leisure. And when I looked at the full list of activities I did, I realized I did a lot of things and it did not look very leisurely, right? So then I immediately felt compelled on social media to post the more fun things that I did to help balance out the more kind of productive things that I did over the course of the year. But even in sharing all of that, I decided to do a YouTube video to just focus on what did I do in that first year. A lot of times people are like, okay, well, if I quit, then what am I possibly going to do after that? So you may be somebody who wants to leave academia and you want to quit and you're not sure what you'll do after it or what you would want to do or could do after that. And so I'm just going to share some of the things that I did. So I know for me, when I decided to resign/retire, I already had been coaching for over a decade. I already had my sights on launching, I had already launched La Belle Academy. I was already offering coaching through La Belle Academy. And I also had my sights on launching self-paced course suites online. So I have on the Teachable platform, I offer courses and coaching and course suites through Teachable. And so that was something that I had my mind on and my intention set for even as I was leaving academia. But again, the plan was, okay, how do I take 6 months off and really rest and relax and recover before kind of jumping back into things with the research, doing the fellowship in Germany, and also doing things with La Belle Academy. But I found that once I did resign/retire, I thought it was going to be this switch that I just flipped from the on position to the off position. Like on, I'm a professor, I'm doing all the things. Off, I'm not a professor anymore. I'm not doing any other things. And I often say that for me, instead of it being a switch that I flipped from on to off, it was more of a dial where I turned things down, right? So for example, some of the things that I still did even after I officially resigned/retired is I was asked to write 2 letters for tenure and promotion, for example. And so it was important to me to go ahead and write those letters for tenure and promotion. So I agreed to do those things, and I did those things. So those are two things that I did that came after my official end date for my professor position. I think one was due like maybe in July, and the other one was due like maybe in September. So I had one to do that summer and one to do in the early fall. So those were two things that I did that did take quite a bit of time and energy and effort, but that I committed to doing despite how much time it took. Also, even though I said I was going to take a break from the coaching and course suite, so I did take a break, for example, from La Belle Writers, which I have since relaunched. That relaunched in August. So I took a break from La Belle Writers, and I took a break from coaching in terms of meeting one-on-one with coaching clients or in group coaching spaces. But I still had my sights on like, okay, I need to kind of start the process of launching my self-paced course suites. And so I ended up spending some time on researching the Teachable platform, looking at the content that I wanted to put into those course suites and things like that. So that actually took a lot more time than I expected or intended during my quote unquote sabbatical in Lady of Leisure 6 months when I was off. Right. So what I realize is that, and I say this oftentimes when I'm coaching clients, and I tend to work with, again, high achievers, Black women, women of color, I often say our 10% is most people's 100%, right? So even when we're trying to scale back and do less, oftentimes we're still doing more than most people. And even though I say that all the time, even though I realize that for myself, it was really startling for me to see, again, when I assessed this last year, how much stuff I actually did, because I really imagined myself to be taking a sabbatical and being a lady of leisure and doing fewer things, right? So I want to say, of course, I'm very proud of my achievements. Like, I was, again, really excited when I saw all the things that I did, but then I also did feel some kind of way of like, okay, if this was supposed to be a sabbatical and rest time, if you're supposed to be a lady of leisure, how are all of these things that you did congruent with resting and being a lady of leisure? And frankly, they weren't, right? So of course I wasn't working that entire time, but I did a lot more work than I recalled doing until I kind of did this assessment of like, what did the last year look like, right? So again, I'm still sitting with that fact. I still I have mixed feelings about it. Again, on the one hand, I feel very proud of myself and excited about the things that I got done, because I did them really well and they turned out well. On the other hand, I'm sitting with, what does really being a lady of leisure look like for me, or what does taking a true sabbatical look like for me? And so for me, what I've decided is I need to do another sabbatical. Instead of doing 6 months, I want to do a full year. And so I've decided to take that full sabbatical for my 50th birthday, which would be in about 4 years, right? So that gives me 4 years to decide, like, what are the things that I want to get done over the next 4 years, and what do I need to do to set myself up to take a true sabbatical and be a true lady of leisure for a full year, and not say I'm taking a sabbatical and say I'm being a lady of leisure and then have all of these things that I actually did during that time. Okay, so what I want to do is just go ahead and go through my activity report to highlight the things that I did, so that you can get a sense of, again, what one can do after leaving the academy, how one can still stay connected to community after leaving the academy, how one can still stay connected to research and writing and scholarship, which are the things that I love, right? So when I decided to leave the academy, I assessed what were the things about my job as a professor that I really loved and enjoyed doing, and what were the things that I really did not like and did not want to do anymore. And for me, the things that I really loved were the research, the writing, and the speaking. And what I didn't love were things like grading and being in department meetings and being on committees and all the administrative work that I was doing, right? And so I was really intentional post leaving academia about remaining in the space of writer and scholar and continuing to publish books and articles and stay connected in intellectual communities, right? So this is not me doing things that I didn't want to do. This is me doing things that I wanted to continue to do after leaving the academy, except I was supposed to take more of a break than I realized I actually took. So I'm going to go through some of these things that I did get done. Okay, so for me, one thing that happened is the book, again, Beauvoir and Belle, A Black Feminist Critique of the Second Sex. That book came out. Now, that book had already been written. It was already scheduled to be published. But of course, there are all of these kind of back end things that happen with publishing a book, right? So the book had already been revised, but the press was, everything was kind of off the timeline with the press. So it was supposed to come out at a certain point, but things were backed up for various reasons. So things that spilled over into my sabbatical time with the Beauvoir and Belle book included me receiving the copy edited pages from the press, and then me going through and hiring an editor to go through those to kind of triple check for any errors that may happen. And then also after the copy edits went through and were approved, then I also got the page proofs. So I had to actually go through the page proofs and, go through those one more time before it actually went to print. And then there were also some like author queries about like the bibliography and some citations and things like that. So even though the Beauvoir and Belle book was basically written before I resigned/retired from my philosophy professor position, there were still back end things with the press that had to get done in order to get that book across the finish line, right? So the Beauvoir and Belle book is one thing that I still worked on even after quitting and when I was supposed to be being a lady of leisure. I also started a new book project. So this actually happened starting in spring of 2024. So I was at this point past the sabbatical lady of leisure period, and I was in my research fellowship period in Germany. So I did put together a proposal on Audre Lorde, which is the next book that I'm working on. And I will say this proposal, it's something that I initially drafted last spring. So actually before I resigned/retired from being a philosophy professor. But I had so many moving parts going on in terms of my exit from the academy and my move to another state that I kind of had to put the proposal on hold. And so I wasn't able to return to the proposal in earnest and really tighten it up to send it to the press until spring of 2024. So I did get that proposal into the press in like February of 2024, and then I revised it in April. And then I received reader reports for that proposal in June, and then I was offered a book contract for that proposal in August of 2024. So one book out as well as a book proposal out for my next book to be under contract. I also did several presentations. Again, this is after like during the fellowship period. While I was in Germany, and then soon after I came back from Germany. So since the Beauvoir and Belle book came out, I have done several like author talks related to that book. So I did one author conversation with in an Africana philosophy reading group, and I did another author conversation with the International Simone de Beauvoir Society with the Beauvoir webinar series. Also as part of the fellowship that I did in Germany, I was in the institute was called the New Institute. The group I was in was Black Feminism and the Polycrisis, and they did like a short film related to that topic. So I was interviewed and featured in that short film. I also gave a talk as part of that fellowship connected to one of my research areas, which is the erotic. So I did a presentation on the polycrisis and the erotic, for example, while I was in Germany at that fellowship. Now going back again during what was supposed to be my Lady of Leisure period in August of 2023, I did give a keynote address for the International Simone de Beauvoir Society in Aberdeen in Scotland. This was again something I agreed to do before I left the academy that I decided I still wanted to do because I had never been to Scotland. And it was going to be a good opportunity for me to go to a country I hadn't been to before and get a sense of like the ongoing uptake of my Hannah Arendt and the Negro Question book in a broader, more international context. So I'm glad that I did that because I was able to see again how that book has been taken up outside of the U.S., how positively it's been taken up outside of the U.S., and how much appreciation international scholars have for my work. And sometimes when you're at home in the U.S., you don't really have a sense of how your work is being taken up and embraced in other places. So I'm glad I did that keynote address in Aberdeen and Scotland because it gave me a sense of the kind of broader global impact of my work. I also did several interviews for various podcasts. So I did an interview for Leadership for Equity by UNESCO and Associated Country Women of the World. And I'll do a link to these podcasts because a lot of them I do have the links for. So I did an interview with UNESCO. I was featured on the R Spot with Ayanna Van Zant. That was last fall. I did an interview with Kenya McGuire Johnson for Finding Your Voice After 40 podcast, and the title of that was My Gifts Will Make Room for Me. And with that, I talked a lot about my exit strategies for leaving the academy. I also talked a lot about my happily unmarried and delightfully divorced journey. I did an interview with a woman named Marissa Price on how do we prioritize our pleasure as Black women. And again, a lot of that focused on erotic empowerment and Black women's sexual politics and pleasure. So I really enjoyed doing that interview. I also did one with Kamani Norrington Sands for her organization Lifting As We Climb Consulting. And the title of that was Did I Work This Hard for This? Black Women in Toxic Jobs. And again, there I talked a lot about my entry point into academia, as well as my decision to leave academia and my exit strategies related to that. And then I also did an interview last summer with Rashida Dow on the life-changing magic of quitting. And that was a great interview because it covered a full range of like what the kind of core transformation pillars are for this channel. So I got into a lot of, again, my happily unmarried, delightfully divorced experience. I got a lot into my exit strategies and my decision to leave the academy. And I also got a lot into like my erotic empowerment practices and coaching and courses and things like that. In addition to that, last fall, I also did an exit interview with a woman named Jasmine Wallace, and this is something that was printed, so it's available online as well. And that was basically about, again, my exit strategy, my decision to leave academia as a tenured associate professor in philosophy. Now, since I've come back from Germany and kind of gotten back into in earnest with like relaunching La Belle Academy, again, the course suites, the community, the coaching, part of that has also been for me starting a YouTube channel, right? And so that's the channel that we're on now. So I launched a YouTube channel since I've quit, and I'm excited about that because I've enjoyed doing these videos. These first couple of videos have focused on exit strategies, but I will also be getting again more into the other core pillars like happily unmarried, erotic empowerment, and La Belle writers. So those are kind of the more, I wouldn't say strict, but the more like work related things that I did in the last year. But again, so those are the things that I posted when I sent in the activity report, and I was like, look at me, I'm fabulous, I'm amazing, look at all of those things that I did. And that was like with me being off for 6 months, right? Although clearly I wasn't off for those 6 months because some of the stuff I did during the 6 months. So the thing that I ended up posting after this to kind of counterbalance the work with more of the fun activities included a lot of stuff with family, as well as some solo travel, as well as some connection with friends, right? So I did, let's see, I already talked about the tenure letters and things like that. I did also do, and this is work related actually. So there's an event called the Night of Philosophy and Ideas at the New York Public Library, the Brooklyn Public Library in New York. And they had a theme focused on 50 years of hip hop. And so I was invited to talk about gender, sex, and sexuality in hip hop, and I did an interview with Rhapsody, and so that was actually a highlight because I got an opportunity to meet and talk to Rhapsody, so that was amazing. And I like the Night of Philosophy and Ideas in general as an event. I love the fact that they open up the library to the public, that they have the library open all night, and you have access to various different speakers on different topics. So that's an event that whenever I'm invited to do, I generally say yes because I like the idea of it and the intention behind it, as well as the experience of it. Okay, but let's get back to more of the fun stuff. So I did take a trip to North Carolina where I spent some time with friends and also met a short-term lover last summer, so that was very nice. I took a trip to Washington, D.C., where I attended an event with Alex L. and met some other amazing women, and like my conversations whenever I talk about my journey, again, whether it's the happily unmarried journey or the erotic empowerment journey or the exit strategies journey, I find that it always resonates with a broad audience, again, especially with Black women and women of color. So me attending that event with Alex L. and talking to so many people in that space was very affirming for me in terms of my life choices, in terms of my offerings through La Belle Academy, and the things that I'm talking about on this YouTube channel. I also took a trip to Amsterdam, a solo trip to Amsterdam, which was nice. During the fall of last year, my two younger kids were with their dad. They weren't living with me, and so I took several trips to visit with them while they were living with their dad, and so it was good to see them. I have a good friend from college who also got delightfully divorced, and she had a divorce party and celebration in Curacao, so it was amazing to be able to go to Curacao with a college friend and two other friends of hers that I didn't know when we were in college, but she did. But we all got along really well. It was a beautiful kind of Spelman sisterhood connection, and we just got into all things happily unmarried, delightfully divorced, erotic empowerment, motherhood, all the things. So that was a great trip to Curacao. I did the Sex Down South conference, which I try to do every year in Atlanta, Georgia. That conference is actually coming up next weekend in Atlanta. So I'm looking forward to that. And again, that's part of my erotic empowerment journey and offerings. And I also went to, I'm associated with the Black Natures Association. and they had an event in Chicago. So right after I did Sex Down South last year, I took a flight to Chicago to participate in the event with the Black Naturists Association, and that was also amazing. My oldest daughter, who is 21 years old, is getting a master's at Queen's University in Northern Ireland in Belfast. And so she moved in and moved over there last September, maybe like 2 weeks before her birthday. And so because I had resigned / retired, because I was being a lady of leisure, I had the time where I could actually fly over with her to Belfast, help her get set up in her apartment. And I spent 2 weeks there with her since her birthday was coming up. So I basically stayed with her from like mid-September while she was getting set up. And I actually got a separate Airbnb so she could stay in her apartment. But I went over with her mid-September to help her get set up. And she's pretty self-sufficient, so she did a lot of things on her own. I was really there for more moral support than anything else. And then I stayed through till her birthday to celebrate her 21st birthday. So that was amazing. I did the Exodus Summit virtual conference in October of last year. Of course, all of you who know, if you are watching me, you probably do watch or know Rashida Dow and Stephanie Perry, who run the Exodus Summit. That's actually coming up soon in the fall. So I did do that virtual conference with them. I took my younger two kids to the Beyonce concert in Kansas City, the last stop of the Renaissance tour. So that was fun. I got a chance to visit with my sister and my older son in Washington, D.C. So my sister had a business conference there, and my son and I flew, my oldest son who's 23, and I flew to D.C. to just hang out with her and spend some time with her, and that was good. I joined the Savannah Black Chamber of Commerce, and they had a business mixer event. And so it was nice to do that as I'm starting to try to meet new people and build community here. So that was good. So that's not necessarily a leisurely thing, but it was a way of kind of building my social as well as my business network. I attended the Phyllis Wheatley Poetry Festival 50th anniversary. And so for this, some people will think like this is a work thing, but this was definitely a pleasure thing for me because it was wonderful to be able to go to this conference, very historic conference and event, and be able to just kind of go and learn from all the people there without having to be an expert and without having to speak. So that's a conference I attended for pleasure, without having to like be an expert or be a speaker at that conference. I visited my kids again in the fall. Oh, and then I went to several concerts. So some of the things that I do for fun, I really enjoy live music. Like here in Savannah, there are a lot of places that have local live musicians and singers. So I enjoy participating in that and going to that as often as I can here in Savannah. But I also like going to concerts. So one of my really good friends from college and I went to see Usher in Vegas in the fall in November. I went to a Motown Christmas concert here in Savannah. I went to a 90s R&B concert here in Savannah, and then I liked that one so much that I decided to go to another R&B concert, 90s R&B concert in Miami last year, and that was lots of fun. And then generally speaking, I ate lots of really good food. I met some really cool people. And also explored different coffee shops because I like to read and write and just hang out in coffee shops sometime, right? So that's my report on what I did that was more on the fun side of things that were not necessarily work related that I did over the last year, right? So hopefully that gives you a sense of like there are plenty of things like, well, first of all, if you're resigning and retiring from a position, or if you're leaving academia, it is important to try to take some time to again rest, recover, recuperate from all the things that you did while you were in the academy. So that is an important thing. That's something I tried to do but did not do as well as I thought I did, right? And having said that, like once you are able to rest, recover, and you're wondering like, okay, what are your next steps? Hopefully me sharing what I did over the last year let you know like there are plenty of things that you can continue to do once you leave the academy. Again, if you like the scholarship and the research and the writing, you can continue doing that. If you like being engaged in intellectual communities, there are plenty of ways to do that. But if you're going in a different direction, then you can also put your time and energy and attention into whatever the other direction is that you want to go in, right? So again, for me, I enjoy being a scholar. I enjoy being a writer. So I continue to participate in conferences and things like that. But also I offer a writing community, right? So La Bellevue Writers is a core program, signature program for Belle Academy, and that's a space where I like doing my writing, and I enjoy writing in community with other people who are doing their writing and advancing their projects, right? So there are different ways that you can stay connected to intellectual communities if that's what you want, or if you're looking to make a transition to connect with other communities, then I would say look into whatever local organizations are where you are that are related to the things you want to do, right? So for me, again, because I'm transitioning from the academy and being an academic and professor to being an entrepreneur, it was important for me to find first the Black Chamber of Commerce here in Savannah. And then also more recently, I've joined what I call the White Chamber of Commerce. They don't call it the White Chamber of Commerce, but that's basically what it is, right? But I know the things that I'm trying to learn. I know the networks that I want to build. So I'm really being intentional about connecting to organizations that are aligned with like who I am and where I'm going, what direction I'm going in. And actually along some of the lines, I also did participate in the Arlen Hamilton, Your First Million Live conference, which was in LA in like March, I think, like February, March of 2024. So that's something else that I did. So there are things that you can, there's plenty to be done, whether it's again related to research and writing and intellectual community, if that's the direction you want to stay in once you leave academia, or going in a completely different direction. Just once you identify what that direction is, then you just find the organizations that are doing the thing that you want to do so that you can start to build community and network with those organizations, right? Okay, so my main takeaway is that, again, I'm proud of the things that I did. I'm acknowledging that I did not rest as much as I thought that I rested. And so ultimately, I do want to take another true sabbatical, but for a full year. Again, I'm planning on doing this now for my 50th birthday, which is in 4 years. So that's great. And so I want to hear from you now, right? Let me know what is landing for you or hitting home for you from this video in terms of what I shared about quitting academia and what I did in the year after quitting. Let me know if you have a hard time, as I did, even though I didn't realize I did until I did this activity report. Do you have a hard time kind of slowing down and resting and dialing back from doing all the things? And do you even know what dialing back might look like, right? So when I look at these activities over the last year, I'll say I definitely dialed back from what a typical year would be for me if I had still been a full-time professor, right? Like I did less than I would have done if I was still in that academic role, but I also still did a lot more than I thought I would have done when I was supposed to be taking a 6-month sabbatical and be a lady of leisure for 6 months of the last year, right? Also, I'm wondering what emotions may be coming up for you, right? So as I share my experience, whether it's about quitting and leaving the academy or being a lady of leisure and taking some time off, or the things that I've done over the last year, again, what's resonating for you and hitting home, but what's coming up for you? Are there any strong feelings or emotions coming up for you? Are you noticing anything in your body in terms of like excitement or tension in your body? You know, let me know what's coming up for you and where in your body that might be coming up for you. And that's it. That's the end of the video. I will say I appreciate you joining me for this discussion. My next video after this one is going to be 3 ridiculous reasons Black women stay in the academy. So I'm looking forward to posting that one next. And so at this point, I'm just going to remind you to subscribe, like, comment, share this video if this is something that resonated with you, or if you know someone that with whom this will resonate, please do share. Holler at me in the comments. I love getting comments and responding to comments. And yeah, what to watch next will be my video on 3 ridiculous reasons why Black women stay in the academy. Thanks for joining. I look forward to seeing you next time. Okay, bye.